Okay, so let me show you something. Here's this website called Dulcedo, and if you scroll down here, there's a very interesting effect. As you can see, as I hover over models, influencer, athletes, and all these menu options, these little images appear here, and they just move up and down as I move my cursor right here. What's interesting is that as I move my cursor to the left and right, this is not really moving left and right. It stays at its position and it only moves up or down. So actually, someone called Adria reached out to me asking how to create this effect inside Framer, and in this video I'm going to attempt to build this from scratch. I have never done this before, or I don't remember, and so we're going to figure it out together. So you're going to see how I'm thinking about interactions like this, and if you follow along with me, you're going to probably learn a lot. So if you're interested in creating no-code interactions on your Framer websites, make sure to watch this full video. My name is Nandi, this is Framer University, and let's get started. Okay, so first of all, anytime if I'm creating something in Framer, recreating or creating from scratch, I have to really understand what I'm doing or what I want to do. So in this case, we have to do the same. We have to kind of analyze what is going on here. So honestly, it's not that crazy. We can see that we have these full width buttons that have a hover state where the text switches color from black to white, and the background color changes to black. It's an instant transition because as you can see, as I hover over, it switches instantly. And also a little custom cursor, or I don't know if I can call it custom cursor, but a little image appears here, which changes to another image with a little swipe masking effect, which looks pretty cool. And it's only moving up and down, not moving to the left or to the right. So yeah, we don't really have to know how to create this thing when we start, because I, for example, have no idea how I'm going to make sure that it only moves up and down. We can just go step by step, and along the way, we figure it out. And that's the approach that you should probably also have when you're building something in Framer. So let's get started. I already have a project prepared here, which is, well, completely blank. It's a new project. It's a new project, so maybe you can also start one, or you're going to also find a link in the description that you can click to remix this project, and you're going to be able to just go to the starter page to see what I'm seeing here. We also see the little note that I got from, actually, here is the name, from Adria. So if you're looking to see what was in the message, you can check it here, but basically they're looking to see how this effect is created. So first, of course, I'm just gonna do a basic site structure. I'm gonna press F on my keyboard, draw a frame, and then call it main. This is the main container on our website. And of course, the desktop breakpoint will be turned into a layout. So everything within is a relative element. So I can put it to fill width and then make it a little bit larger in terms of height. And the breakpoint can actually be fit content. Then I already add the tablet and phone breakpoint just so we can see the website across different breakpoints. And then within the main, I will drop another frame, and I'll turn the main as well into a layout with a vertical direction, start, distribute, and 0 gap. Now this frame within will be called the hero section, will be set to fill width. The height will stay fixed for now, it will be fit content later, and the min height viewport 100VH is added. At this point, the main can also be set to fit content, so it fits the content within. So as I add more sections or duplicate this hero, as you can see, the website nicely grows with it because the main as well as the desktop are both set to height fit content. Now the hero is going to be a layout as well, so everything I put within will be relative positioned. One little thing that we can also do is making sure that the HTML tags on our website are properly set up. Easy peasy, we just select the frame, main, go to the right panel, scroll down to accessibility, click tag, and add the beautiful main tag right here. Then on the hero section, we're going to do the same, accessibility tag, and then section will be selected. You might be wondering, why do we have to care about this? It's because the browsers, the search engines will better understand the content on our website, improving our search performance and stuff like that. So that's why we have to make sure that those accessibility tags are properly set up. So now that we have this basic setup, we can start adding the actual content that matters. Now, as you can see, we have basic text and a wrapping frame for the text. So that's going to be super simple. It's going to be a component that I can reuse for all these different instances. So I'm going to just write modals. I can also, by the way, write modals like this. And then on the right panel, I can go to text, click this little plus button and add an uppercase transform. This way, it will always be uppercase and no matter what I write, which is very lovely. Now, the text size is something I have to check. I can right click and inspect here and I can go and hover over the text. And I'm going to see that it is indeed 100%, 100 pixels. So I can immediately just go back and select the text and set it to 100 pixels. Now for the font, it uses Helvetica on the original website. Here, I don't think that we have Helvetica in Framer because I think it's a paid font. So I'm just gonna decrease the letter spacing, try to match that level of boldness. Maybe extra bold is something that matches it pretty nicely. And I'm looking to decrease the letter spacing to match this sort of vibe. And this looks pretty good. Looks pretty much like what we have right here. Now, that we have this, we can just right click, add a stack. What this does is it basically wraps this text layer in a stack. We can also see it on the left layers panel, and I can just rename this to, I don't know, menu item. So this is going to be the frame that gives the background color to this whole thing. You can see, however, that it's on the top and on the bottom, there isn't much space. However, in our case, there's quite a bit of space. The way we can decrease that is by decreasing the line height on the text. Because right now, this stack that we've wrapped the text in is set to fit height. So it is fitting the text within. And the text height is defined by the line height. So if we decrease the line height, as you can see, the wrapping frame's height is also changing. I will try to match it as close as I can because I'm obsessed with the details. Maybe something like this. And we're good. So I'm just now thinking if there's an easy way for us to use blending modes in order to not having to mess around with color changes. Because my theory is that if I change this background color to black 0% and then keep this text on a white color and add style blending difference, this will essentially allow me to only change the background color on the menu item stack, and then the text color will automatically change, as you can see, without me having to change it to white. Because, you know, the text layer is actually still on white color, but since it's set to difference blending mode, you know, the color might be white or black or gray depending on what's behind the actual text layer. So if the behind or the underlying layer has black color, the text will be white. However, if the underlying layer is white, the text will be black, which is very good. Looks very nice. Love it. Okay, so what I also notice here is that on the left and right, we have quite a bit of space. It doesn't run to the edges. So to achieve that, what I can do is I can wrap this little menu item stack in another stack, and I can name that content. And this content can have sort of like either like a max width, but I don't really think that this is a max width. I think it's padding. So what I do is I just add padding on the left and right. If I have to guess, but I won't guess, I will measure, it's 60 pixels. So on the left and right, I'm adding the 60 pixels gap or padding. And so now this menu item is nicely contained. Perfect. So at this stage, let's try turning this into an actual component that we can reuse and then add the hover state to it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click, create a component. Now I'm turning this into a component. The reason why I'm doing this is because this way I can basically add the hover state to this. I can add interactions and create interactions. What happens if I click it, hover over, and so on and so forth. And it's also going to be a reusable element that I can use for all of these instances right here that we have. So this will be called variant 1, but I can rename it to default. And then I can click here on the bottom to add a hover state. And on the hover state, I just change the color property on the right panel of this variant so that the layer below will actually be 100% black. I'm a bit worried though that this is white here and also white here. Let me go back to see if it works, and it seems like it is working. Yeah, as you can see, it works. So that's very lovely. Here it's a little off, like I'm not really seeing what I'm seeing here, but it might be because this has a black background. I don't know. But the point is that I'm not really seeing the same transition that I see on the original website. Here it's instant. You can see the colors change instantly. On our version, it's sort of like a slow transition with like a few seconds time. We have to remove that and make it instant by going inside of the component and changing the transition property on the default primary variant. This is where we can set up how our animations across different variants and states behave and play out. So if I want something slower, faster, more bouncier, or instant, I can set that up here. Now if I hover over, as you can see, it's nice and instant, which works much better for these simple color switches like what we have in this case. Okay, I like it. The only thing that I don't like is that I think the line height should be slightly bigger. It's going to be 0.9. Sorry guys, as I said, I'm a little bit obsessed with the details. Okay, so now at this stage, we can duplicate this. Just press Command D on your keyboard and it's going to be duplicated. Between these, I think we don't have any spaces. You can see there's literally no gap between the two items, or the two menu items. So this content frame that the menu items are wrapped in will have 0 gap on the right panel. So once we do that, as you can see, it is pretty good. No gap between. So now the only thing that we have to think about is how do we have different text on these different instances, because now it just says models and there's no way for me to change this. If I go within and change the text, well, you're going to see that it is basically changing on both instances. So there must be another way. I'm going to go within the component, select the layer that I want to change or make sure that it's customizable across different instances. It is the text layer. And on the right panel, I can turn its content property into a variable, a plain text variable. And now this title or this variable called title is available for us to customize on the page level as an exposed property on the right panel of this component. It's that simple. So now I can go to models and I can rename it to influencers. Lovely. I can duplicate it again, athletes, entertainers, and gamers. Perfect. So now if I hover over these, as you can see, we have the effect very nicely. However, this is still missing. But we're going to add that a little bit later. One more thing I want to do here is I want to make sure that the text is not selectable. I mean, here it's selectable, but I usually want to set text selection to none on interactive elements. So that's going to be super simple. We go within the component, select the text layer. On the right panel, we click Styles Plus, and User Select None will be added to this text layer. Great. What else do we have to do? We probably also have to assign a link property to this, because when we click it, actually, it's not, I think it's just a drop down or whatever. And these take us to different pages. Okay, so I think we can say that we need a link property added to this, so it can take us to different websites. It's going to also be a variable, so I select the primary, and on the top right, I click link, and I just turn that into a variable as well. And as you might already know, this will basically be exposed as a property here on the page level, on the right panel of this component, and I can link this to anywhere. So once I click this, I'll be taken to that other website or URL. Great, so I think now that we have this, it's time for the more complex part, which is the actual image that appears. Now, once we want to create something like this, we have to think about all the different ways we can do that. We could do a custom cursor in Framer, which is basically, I don't even know where to apply that, but I can just draw a frame here, and I can make sure that this frame that I design, which is, I don't know, let me just upload a random image here from like Unsplash. So whatever I design here, I can set it as a custom cursor on any element. Hopefully these images will load, or I can just use a random image. Or maybe there's some sort of issue with the Unsplash integration or plugin in Framer, and I don't know, the API is not connecting to the Unsplash API. But we have pixels as well, so we might want to use that or try that instead, and it works. So I'm gonna just pick a random image just to show you. I'm gonna rename this to cursor, and I'll select this component here, and on the right panel, I'm gonna go to cursor, custom cursor, and I'm gonna select the component. It actually has to be a component, so I have to turn the cursor into a component. That's how I can actually set it as the custom cursor. So now, as you can see, it appears here. I'm gonna apply this. I'm gonna give it a follow property, so it follows my cursor instead of replacing it. It's gonna be on the right with a large offset, maybe 100 pixels. And basically that's it. So now if I hover over, as you can see, it's there. However, the problem with this solution, and you're gonna notice this a lot when you're trying to build something in Framer or whatever, is that you figure out a solution that, okay, I can add a custom cursor, but then you realize that, okay, it works, but it's not really what I need because it moves to the left and right as well, and not just up and down. So you kind of have to think about other ways of how you can achieve the same thing. Now, in this case, I think we can use something just within the component, with variants, and not using the custom cursor feature in Framer. So what I'm thinking about is that I'm gonna completely remove this cursor. I'm gonna delete it from my components as well, just to stay organized. This here. Why cannot I just delete it? Maybe because it's applied as a custom cursor. So let me delete it now. So what I can do again is that I can literally have these menu items wrapped in one stack. So I'm going to add a stack. So these are now wrapped in a stack, which is called menu items. I can turn this into a component. And so I can have the image here within this component. And so I can make sure that, this is the default variant. So when I'm not hovering over anything, I basically see this. But when I start hovering over, for example, the first one here, the models, I enter into the first hover state and a little image appears here, which only moves up and down. But again, the problem with that is that how do I make sure that it only moves up and down? Because, I can create a layer here. Actually, it was a bad decision that I deleted that cursor because I kind of need a cursor, right? So I'm just going to draw one. I can see that it's going to have an image, and then it's going to have this crazy effect as it moves from one image to the other, which is, again, something I'm not really sure how I'm going to do. But I'm pretty sure that this is just going to be a holder frame, the cursor itself. And within, I'm going to have another layer, which is going to be pinned to all sides to make sure it fills up the available space. And this is going to be the actual image. Now I'm going to go to what it's called, visualelectric.com/inspo. And I'm going to pick some images from here because it's just much easier instead of trying to pick something from pixels or whatever. So I just like this curation here. So I'm going to right click, copy image, and I'm going to paste it in here instead of this fill color on the image layer within the cursor. So what I was trying to say is that I can paste this cursor within here, not as a relative element, because then it's going to be just part of the flow. I'm going to be setting this to absolute. I'm going to move it here to the right. And then to make sure that it's visible, I'm going to set this default primary variant to overflow visible. So now the overflowing part is nicely visible. So I can put it here. I can somehow get it aligned with this right here, which is, I don't know, like it's not the easiest task, honestly, but I'm just gonna kind of do it. And then here, so on the primary, we would probably make it opacity 0, but not only on the image, on this whole cursor. Opacity 0, not visible. On the first, it gets visible. And on the second, we could move it down and of course change the image, but for now, let's just move it down. Again, trying to kind of center it to the second one. And so when I hover over models, I go to the first variant. So what I do is I select this component, I connect from there to the first variant on the mouse, enter. Then I select the second one, which is influencers, and I connect to the influencers. Again, with mouse enter. One thing I noticed is that default primary has gap 10. We have to set that to 0, so there's no gap between the menu items. Okay, one more thing. Whenever I leave with my cursor, leave this whole thing, so the whole variant, I want to go back to the default. So mouse leave is added here. And actually, quick tip for you, if I add this mouse leave interaction on the default primary, it's going to be added everywhere, because that's actually something I want to add everywhere. Because right now, it will appear here and it will move down. However, let me show you here. Okay, just a little correction here. I think these pins should not be applied, because then the image, as you saw it, it was just far too much to the right, but it still is, which is interesting to say the least. Probably these pins are okay. No problem with the pins. Then what the hell? That's interesting. Why is it so far to the right? Huh. That's interesting. Okay, one more thing. The content has to have overflow visible, so we can see this. But okay, I'm just gonna move it to the left a little bit more then. Like move it closer, and it moved closer everywhere. Perfect. Okay, so now it's gonna be better. Okay, perfect. So now, as you can see, I hover over models. It appears. I move down and it moves down. Now, there is two problems with this. First of all, when I hover off, it doesn't go back to the default. And then second, it doesn't have subtle movements. As you can see on the original, which I can kind of check here. On the original, there is fine movement. Even if I hover within one item, it moves up, down, and then it changes. So how do we create that fine movement? Well, not with variants, it's not going to work like this. So we'll have to find another solution. And I think in this case, we might not even do the mouse leave interaction, because, you know, we might have to have a completely different setup. so that we can have those finer movements. So now we have to think about how the hell we're going to make sure that it actually has those finer movements. Okay, so I'm not going to lie to you, my only hope is the hover force component from Framer University. So I'm going to open framer.university/resources, search for hover force, and I'm going to copy this component into our project. I'm pasting this in here, and you can see that it's already pasted in. Hover force is within the primary variant. However, it's an invisible component, so we cannot really see it. For now, I'm going to just remove it, Command and X. So now it's on my clipboard, but yeah, it's removed. And instead of having these variants here, well, I'm thinking if I can remove the variants, I could. But yeah, for now, I'm going to remove it. We'll need the variants to change the image on the cursor, but for now, we can remove it, I think. Yeah. So instead, we're going to just have this cursor here, and we're going to try if we can actually move this with the hover force. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste it within. So now the cursor, within the cursor frame, which is right here, we have the hover force component, which is absolutely invisible. It's not visible on the canvas. It just adds the effect. So on the hover force component, we can go to the right panel, and what's good about this component is we can set the direction of the force, and we can set it to vertical only. And this is why I'm hoping that this will help me. And we can make sure that it attracts, so it moves where my cursor actually moves. So with these settings, let's just take a look. Let's see how it works, and hopefully we get something cool. Now, as you can see, it doesn't do anything because now it's set up in a way that I have to move close, and you can now see that it kind of moves up and down. You can see as I move with my cursor. My idea is that hopefully when I select this hover force and on the right panel, I change the area to like 1000 pixels, which I cannot because the max seems like 800. Hopefully it will be better. So let's see. As you can see, it still doesn't work because we are quite far, but we will probably find a way to move this closer, but let's see how it behaves. Okay, as you can see, it moves down. The only problem is that when it's just quite like, it's not really predictable. Like sometimes it moves up, sometimes it moves down. It's not really a smooth movement that I would be looking for, which is not really great. So let's think about how we can improve this. Okay, so right now you're going to see some never before seen knowledge, content, and I don't know, just trying to be smart to achieve what we want to do. So make sure to do not share this with anyone. I know that this is a public video, but it's already 28 minutes into the video, so hopefully no one is watching it. So what do we do in this case? Well, we find, because we clearly are not getting what we want, right? It's not nice. I don't want this. So what we do in this case is we find the closest thing to what we actually want to do. Now, the closest thing is not this hover force component, it's the follow cursor component. Because this, if added within the component, will make the component or the element follow my cursor. The problem with this is that it only has, it just has a few simple properties. It doesn't allow me to, first of all, it doesn't allow me to offset the element from my cursor. And also it doesn't allow me to change the direction, right? So I want to make sure that it actually doesn't jump on my cursor. It stays at its original position and only moves up and down according to my cursor. But this component here is probably a very good starting position. But here comes the problem. How do we go and create an alternative version of this component? How do we do that? Well, very simple. We have to make sure that we get the code for this component. We paste it into Workshop, which is a Framer plugin that allows you to create code components with AI. And we basically ask what we want to do. How do we get the code? We copy the component, we paste it in our browser, And then there is a link here that we can copy. And as you can see, this is fully publicly available. Then we paste it in here as well. And then this is not the code yet. We have to go edit the link and at the very end say TSX instead of JS. And this is the code of the component. And we can play around with this. And so I just press Command A, Command C to copy this, go back into Framer. So this is a trick. It really helps you to kind of play around with different ideas and build on already existing components. However, make sure that you use it, ethically. Do not steal stuff and stuff like that. So I'm gonna fire up Workshop, and Workshop will help me. I'll paste this in here and I'll say, hey, please generate an alternative version of this component that works similarly. I can put it within a frame, and that frame will basically start following my cursor. However, in a different way. It should not jump on my cursor and follow it that way, but instead it should only follow my cursor's Y position. Vertical. I think that's it. Do we need anything else? I don't think so. I'm gonna hit enter and we'll see what we have. Maybe we could be a little bit more, we could describe it a little bit more, whatever, but I'll just try and hopefully we'll be good with this simple prompt. So it's great because it already has a starting point, it already has a component that works, but we just want something slightly different. So yeah, let's see. It will take some time to generate, but once it's done, we can paste it straight into the cursor element and we'll be good to go. And as you can see, it's already created. It's again a component that is fully invisible. So I will just press Command X to copy it. And then I'm going to jump within here. And instead of the hover force, I'm going to delete that. I'm going to paste in the follow cursor vertical. Let's see the properties on the right. We have enabled, okay, on. We have fade, which is weird. I don't know what is fade. And we have alignment. So let's see if it works. It works, guys. This is how you do it. This is how you do it. And many people will get stuck and they're like, I cannot do it. Framer is such a, I cannot do what I want to do. No, you can. You just have to be smart. So now we have a component that follows my cursor, but only the Y position, the vertical position. We have a few properties that we don't understand, such as the fade. I don't know what is the fade, but it works, so I'm not really gonna care. Yeah, I think we can also use smoothing. Hopefully it works. In theory, that should make this movement a little bit. Yeah, it may, as you can see, doesn't follow the cursor like as, I don't know, accurately. It's still pretty accurate, but it takes some time to stop and, stuff like that. If you bump that out to like 100 smoothing, it's gonna be like very smooth and it's gonna follow the curve. You see how slow it is right now? It's just getting a little bit too soft or smooth. So I'm gonna do 60. I think that's a nice setting and lovely. Okay, so this is good. We have this right here. Now the thing that I already want to figure out is how the frick I can figure out the positioning, because this is not going to be great that this is always like in a random position. Also, if it's smaller, it's too close. Is it getting too far to the right? What is the position here on the original? let's see. The position is right there. It's kind of like if we break this up into a few, maybe 3 sections. Like, I don't know, 3 sections like this. It's kind of like in the 3rd section. It's not completely centered within the 3rd section, but it's kind of there. You know, this is what I do usually. I just see how it behaves on the original. What is going to happen if I adjust it? You know, it gets over the text. Yes, as you can see, in some cases it's going to be over the text. So I'm going to be like, okay, then it's fine. Maybe in my case, it's going to be also over the text in some cases. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a helper frame. So I'm going to draw a frame here, press Command and X, paste it within. I'm going to set it absolute positioning. I'm going to pin it to all sides. This will be called helper. I don't know, helper. Let's just call it helper. I'm going to remove the color, increase the Z index, and turn it into a layout. And here I'm going to create a spacer within. I'm going to call it spacer. I'm going to just decrease the opacity so that you can just see that it's there to see what it does. And then I'm going to set the height to fill. And then the relative width will be applied maybe to 60% or something. And then this helper will actually be set to start distribute, so that this spacer is actually right here. And then maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's 70%. That should be good. And then this cursor will be added within the helper as a relative element, not as an absolute element, as a relative element. And hopefully it will still follow the cursor. So gap will be 0, and this spacer will basically push the initial position always 60% from the left to the right, and hopefully that will make a ton of sense. It still follows the cursor, and hopefully on window resizes, it will act as it should. Yes, as you can see now, as I increase my screen size, it's not going as far out. And yeah, it just works. And you can see it's all thanks to the spacer that we couldn't really see because of the color. And I'm going to change it to gray so you can actually see it. So it's all thanks to that spacer always taking up 60% of the full width and always pushing this to that correct position. Perfect. I absolutely love it. So color on the spacer will be removed. Pointer events, none will be added, so we can actually hover over elements that are underneath. Same will be applied to helper. Actually, to the whole helper, I can just add pointer events, none, because you might have noticed that we weren't able to trigger the hover states as we were doing that. Now we can, and that's very good. Now, we also noticed that there's a clipping issue on the helper stack. We have to set a visible overflow, so this cursor, when moved up, it is nicely overflowing and is visible. Absolutely gorgeous. And last part of our little adventure is making sure that the image changes when hovering over specific items. For that, we have to create a cursor component, which is already here. But we have to structure it in a smart way so that when changing between these variants, we actually have that sort of masking effect. I have no clue what is the actual accurate effect here. So what I'm usually doing in this case is I'm just doing a little video, right? Pop, pop, pop. See what is going on, and then stopping the video, replaying it in slow motion will give us the exact experience. And look at that, it's just a swipe from top to bottom. There's also some scaling up and stuff, which I don't think I'm gonna do. I'm just thinking if there's like an easy way to do this with like appear effects, because that would be the best. But I don't think so. I don't think so that I can do this with appear effects, because this masking is just... yeah. Let's just do crazy. So again, we hover over and we always mask from the top so that the current image gets masked down. Actually, I don't think that we're going to be able to do this because this would be too complex and would probably require another component, a code component. We can still create a cool effect with appear effects, and I think it will look just as good as this. Yeah, we'll make it look cool and sort of like this, but not exactly. My idea is that we're gonna have a bunch of images within. So we're gonna create, let's just turn this into a component. Cursor, create component, okay. We're gonna call this image 1, and then I'm gonna duplicate this, call it 2, then 3, 4, actually 3, 4, and 5. I don't know how many items we have. We have 5. Okay, that's pretty good. So now that we have the 5 items, I can, and you can also see they're all absolutely positioned. They're all right on top of each other. Now we go back to Visual Electric and we get a few more shots. This one is nice. We copy the image, we go back, upload it to the second image. Then we get this one as well. Copy, upload it to the third one. 4. 4, 4, 4. Copy image. Upload it here. By the way, the thing that I'm doing is I'm clicking and then dragging to the side. This way I'm not opening my Finder. If I would just click here, I would open my Finder. If I click and drag, I highlight this field and I can just press Command and V and it will be pasted in. Little tips that might seem like, I don't know, nothing, but if you keep using this long term, it really saves you some time. This guy looks funny. So I'm going to copy the image and paste it here. Actually, I just noticed that it gets highlighted as you click it here. This wasn't like this, I think previously, or it used to work differently, and I just used to clicking and dragging. But it seems like that it gets highlighted automatically and gets focused, so you can just straight away just press Command and V to paste things in. But that's just a little side note. So we are within the cursor component. We are on the first variant, and we can hide essentially all other images by pressing Command and well, I don't know the shortcut because it's like a Hungarian keyboard. It will be probably different for you. Let's just set visibility to no. Now, only the first image is visible on this. I can create a new variant, call it 2, and I can set the first image visibility to no, and the second image visibility to yes. You can see how it changes here on the right panel and changes which one is visible. Now I'll do this on each variant, 3rd, and then 4, and then 5. Make sure that the names are all nice. And so now this will result in a instant switch between these. Just buck. However, we need something a little bit smoother. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this cursor to clip overflow. We already have that, which is pretty good. I'm going to set a very specific size. Width will be 230. Height will be 320. And then I'm going to select all of the images and I'm going to set effects, appear, and I'm going to customize their appear effect here. This will work because we are setting the visible property of these images, not the opacity. So each time we switch between the variants, a new element is actually appearing, like technically appearing in the structure of the website, so the appear effect fires. If we were to just change the opacity to hide and show them, the appear effect would not fire on each variant change. But since we're doing the visibility change on each with the actual visible property, the appear effect will work. So let's start customizing this. I want this to come in from the, I want each of them to come in from the bottom or from the top. It doesn't matter actually, maybe from the top. And I have a very specific 320 height because I can set it here, 320 minus 320. That's it. And I can set the transition here. It's going to be 0.4 or 0.5. Doesn't matter. Now all of these have the same appear effect. And hopefully this will look sort of nice. Now we can go back to this component and we can set up the hover states here, because now what we have is this follows the cursor, very nice, but it doesn't change the images. We have to set that up on this level of the component structure that we are building. So I'm going to add the variant here, call it 1. And so here we're setting this variant to the first. And actually here, this cursor should probably be visibility, no. It shouldn't be visible. On this here, it should be visible, yes. And here on the primary, the cursor should have like an appear effect. Appear, and it will just have, I don't know what it has on the original, probably not like a scale in, but I kind of want to do that, honestly. It doesn't have a scale in effect, but I want to do a scale in. Can I do it? I can, because I'm in Framer and I can do whatever I want to do. So 0.9, it's going to come in from this, 0 bounce, 0.5 time, that's it. Okay. So when I hover over the first element, we will go from visible no to visible yes, and the appear effect will fire, but it's on the complete variant, so it's not related to how any of these images within appear thanks to the appear effect. So now, when I hover over the modals, which I cannot select because the spacer is like over these, so I'm going to lock that layer by selecting it and locking it. So now I'm selecting the helper frame, which is which makes my life again hard. I'm going to lock that as well. Problem is that that also locks the image or the cursor, whatever. So whenever I hover over the modals, I want to go here. Perfect. Let's see if it works. Okay. I don't like the scale effect. I don't like the scale effect. I think it's not going to have a scale effect. It's not even going to have an effect on it, like an appear effect. I think the instant will look good because it will basically show this, what we have here, like the appear effect on the actual image. Yeah, I think that will look great. Okay. So now I just have to set up a bunch of variants. Second variant, where I'm basically only changing the, and let me just unlock this. So I'm only changing this to the second variant on the cursor. Then the third, I'm going to switch this to the third. Then 4, switch this to the 4. And 5, switch this to 5. Now I have to connect all the interactions. So again, lock these so I can select underlying layers. Models already set up. Let's connect this. I can also drag and connect from here, but I can also press down L on my keyboard and connect that way. So athletes is going to the third, entertainers going to the fourth, and the fifth one is the gamers. Okay, and whenever I leave with my cursor on any of these variants, I want to go back to the default. So I'm going to add that to the primary. So I'm just literally connecting from the primary to itself and on mouse leave. So this will be applied everywhere. On the first variant, if I leave, I go back to the default. On the second variant, if I leave, I go back to the default. Let's see what this basically gives us. On hover, image appears. When I switch, that didn't really look good. And I'm going to explain why that happened. So basically, our images have to load, right? Like on the website, whenever an image appears, it has to load. And since the appear effect is like moving this element in like 0.5 seconds, in some cases, it's not going to be loaded in initially. So this is something that I'll try to fix. But for now, let's just know that this is why, for some reason, the first time when I'm hovering, the effect will look off. You can see even here, we didn't see the effect. It just, changed to the other image like almost like instantly, or after a little bit of waiting, and it's basically the same everywhere. But as I'll go back now, you're gonna see that the actual appear effect works, and they kind of come in from the top. For the first time hover, we did not see that. That's a problem, and I'll try to work around that fact. What about the actual effect? Well, not bad. It definitely could be better. I mean, if we wanted to mess around more with like the variants, we could actually do that masking effect, but like appear effects are just much easier to do, and in this video I think I don't want to like spend more time on like really customizing that image appear effect. So I think for now this is gonna actually be great. So as a last thing, let's just try fixing the image load. So what we have to understand is that images load when they appear on the screen. So if their visibility property is set to yes, they will load on the website. So I think what we should do is we should find a way to... This is going to be so hacky. I'm going to duplicate this first primary variant of the cursor. I'm going to call this helper. On this, I'm going to make sure that all images are visible. It means that all images are loading in. They're all on the page. However, I'm going to make sure that they are... it's quite hard because I wanted to make them past the 0 and stuff like that, but I just realized that nothing of this really matters because the cursor here on the default is just not even visible. Like it's set to visible no. So I would need to set this to visible yes in order to make sure that it works. And we can try that. We can try that. Okay, I mean, we can try it. Okay, let's try this. So I'm gonna go within, back into the cursor. So we created a helper frame. All of these images are going to be 0 opacity. So this is actually gonna be see-through, okay? And I'm gonna also remove the appear effect from them. So here's a helper frame, which is not visible on the page, but if we start with this variant, this helper, for like 1 second, all the images are going to be loaded in, and from there, they're not going to flash and load when we're actually in the movement and in the transitions. So that's great. I think we have to do the same helper here as well. So I'm going to duplicate the default. I'm going to call this helper as well. And on the helper, I'm going to make sure that the cursor is set to the helper variant. So here it's invisible, but with opacity, the actual component of the cursor is visible inside of the structure. We just cannot see it because of the opacity. And the images are loading in. And then on the default, I think on the default we can hide it. Like we can set visibility to no. And all we have to do is we have to make sure that this is the first thing that we have on the page by default, and we move from here to the default automatically after like, let's say 0.5 seconds, or I don't know how much time it needs to like load in. Let's try 0.5 seconds and make sure that off screen is set to play. So even if it's not within like the view, it's gonna do this interaction. Okay. So here on the page, I'll set helper. So this is where we're starting from. I'm gonna now publish this website to make sure that we get an accurate like preview. So yeah, let's see. I'm gonna open this. We are on the page, and hopefully the interaction has already completed. It went from the helper to the default, and we didn't see anything because on both they are technically not visible to the eye, but we know that on the helper it was actually visible and loaded all the images in, and then it set the visibility to no. Now let's see if it works. I'm very sad because it doesn't. As you can see, the first image took some time to load, but the second work, the third work, all the others work. What the hell? That's interesting. Why does the first image struggle with loading? Can I retest this if I clear cache and cookies or whatever? Let's see. I'm gonna reload the page. Okay, I don't know what was that, but it seems like it should be, it definitely should be better. Like, I mean, the first image was kind of off, but then it was all good. One thing that you can play around with is like the timing here. Like the more you leave here on delay is the more time it will have to load all the images. So maybe like you can even set like 0.6 or whatever. But yeah, I think that's it. We kind of created this effect, and again, it was kind of also one thing. No, I don't know. I don't know why why the first one is not appearing properly. Because in theory, on the helper cursor, that one is also visible. Like the first image is also visible. Yeah, the opacity is 0, but it is visible. Interesting. Very much interesting. Well, I'm not too sure. Let's open it again. Wait a few seconds. Let's actually try hovering from the bottom. Let's try that. Loads. Perfect. I mean, I think it should be good. So we created an interaction where we have menu items, we can hover over them, and on each menu item we get a new image in this little cursor, which only moves up and down, and it doesn't follow the cursor's horizontal movements. And the great thing about this is that it's fully component based. So whenever I'm like, oh, actually, I want to have like a different appear effect on these images, I can just come here to the primary. I can select this appear effect, and I can make sure that it has a different effect. Maybe I don't want the offset. Maybe I want them to scale down, and that's the effect that I want to have. I can have that, no problem. And it's gonna have a little different vibe. We can publish this and see how it looks. It just makes it very easy to experiment and, you know, see what looks better, what works better. So now, you know, this might actually look better. A little scale down effect on each switch. Yeah, that looks pretty dope. Lovely. I really do hope that this was helpful, guys, and you were able to create something cool with me and learn a bunch of things along the way. I highly encourage you to play around with this and, you know, make it your own. Change up the effect on the text, change up the effect on the hover, change up the effect on the cursor when we are switching between these images. Really think about how you can add your own flair to this and share it as a portfolio item, share it on Twitter as something that you just created for practice. Also, if you got stuck somewhere, make sure to drop a comment down below. I would love to help you guys out. Also, if you have any Framer related questions, you can feel free to drop comments down below. Also, if you're interested in Framer content, Framer resources, components, you know, remixable stuff, you can always just go to Framer.University. There's a bunch of things here, videos, tutorials, cool, I don't know, components. Like look at this, for example, like an infinite grid component that you can like add to your website with just literally a single click. So a bunch of things are here. If you're learning, if you're experimenting, if you're building sites, it's probably going to be a super cool resource for you. So yeah, that's it for this video. Make sure to like it, subscribe for more, and I'm going to see you in the next one.